Okay, so a while back, I ordered one of these. What this basically is it hooks into the Wi-Fi port, the A&E slots key. At the other end is a 1X PCIe connector that would, just like you'd see in a full-size desktop where you could stick in a card in here. Again, it's only 1X. And the reason that it is only 1X is that you're only going to get 1X as coming through the Wi-Fi slot. And so it's almost kind of silly to have, 4X, 16X, 8X, because again, you're only going to get 1X speed. I have seen these, larger and so forth, and you could probably, because it's sort of open-ended here, you could probably put a full-size one on there, but it would just do on the other. So I got this, and I'm like, okay, what can I do with it? One of the first things I did try with it is I was able to order a 1X dual-port Intel network card. So it had two Intel on it. It fit in here, and lo and behold, it actually worked. And I could hook it up, and I could, in essence, add two more network ports to my computer. Although, thing is that worked, but it was, I didn't have the cover on, because in order for it to fit this giant card, it had to be on the outside. So I kind of played with it and sort of abandoned that. I didn't really find a real good use for that particular, what I could do with it. So I said, okay, I'll put this to the side and think about it. So put it to the side, and then I noticed that a lot of folks been watching the Wi-Fi hard drive videos, and I thought, well, what if I could use this as another way to add a hard drive? And I said, okay, well, let's look to see what's available that's a PCIe slot that will fit in, that will be 1X, and allow me to do M.2 NVMe. So I found this guy, and it actually comes with, the normal sort of mounting brackets that you would put into a normal PC. What's nice, though, is that they're not connected when you first get it. And that's exactly what I want. I didn't want them connected. So that was great. The other cool thing is it comes with a heatsink and some pads that help to cushion it and cool it and so forth. The thicker one, I believe, you put on here, and it's got double-sided here. You can slap it down. You put your NVMe. You put this on top of it. Then you put this on here, and then it's got some extra screws and all this stuff. I didn't want to do all that because oftentimes I'm playing around and putting different drives in and so forth. So I just did it straight out for this particular demonstration. So with this, you would just stick it in like you would normal, screw it down, and now you've got your NVMe. This, you notice obviously it's got one's wider, one's thinner, narrower. That goes right in there. This goes into the Wi-Fi slot, and at that point you have another drive that you can work with. I was able to install Windows 11 on here and boot from it, and so what I filmed myself doing was setting it up on the G3, G4, G2, and G1, just so you could see and compare how this is going to work in the overall unit as far as an actual sort of either an external. It doesn't really work internal because this guy is so long. I did look for cases where this was shorter, just didn't find anything that would quite work. If folks find one, please let me know. So I'd be kind of curious to see what other kinds, but even if it's shorter, what are you really going to put it? You know, you've got this whole motherboard, you really don't want it accidentally touching anything and shorting anything out. So most likely somewhere on the outside is the best way. I did try seeing if I could maybe fit it into the caddy somehow. That didn't work. So you'll see in the various units the approaches. The G3 overall was, in my book, the cleanest, and you'll see that will be the first one that I'll show you, and then we'll go the G4, G2, and G1, so that way you can decide how you'd like to use this. I'd really be curious to see if I don't have any external graphics cards, or I should say PCIe graphics cards to try it with, but curious to see if someone has a 1X to see how well that works with this sort of setup. On the G3, this has proven to probably be, I guess, relatively the most straightforward in terms of establishing kind of an external PCI port or something that you could connect to. What I did with this was, just to get everything set up, first I removed the caddy, and then I removed, let's see, from here you can see it better, I removed the latch. And I'll provide a link to a prior video where I talk about installing a USB-C port on a G3, and it shows exactly how to go about removing the latch from the back, how to put it back later if you need to, etc., etc. So I would watch that video, at least for the portion, to know how to remove it. The nice thing is once it's removed, what we're going to do is this just fits right through, and now I can install the port, and since it's flat enough, move this out of the way, I still have the ability to stick the caddy back on. And so now I've got my caddy, I've got, I could still add another M.2 right here. I could put a SATA in here, and I've got this external. And the nice thing is that I've got a lot of extra cable. So what I could do is even kind of have it suspended over the top. I'll put the case back on. I could have it sort of suspended on there. I don't have to worry about it touching anything. I did put a little of the Captum tape over these pins here just to make sure nothing touches them and short something out. These I don't believe are supplying power. These are power going into it, but just so that there aren't any issues there. But at least then you have this out. You could attach a graphics card. I know there are not too many 1X graphics cards out there, but just in case, or other kinds of PCI. So the G3 is most likely your best bet, just because of the fact of this orientation of how you're able to actually exploit this nice longer cable. It's positioned just right so that way you can still put the caddy back in and be able to get that set up and working. What I'm going to do now is finish connecting everything, and this particular one I've already installed Windows 11 on it, so I'm going to boot from it. I'll show you what it looks like when it comes up, and we'll also do some speed tests, and we'll see what that looks like. I'm going to tap down connector here. You just have to move the cable out of the way slightly. And And then we'll just get our caddy. Get that into place. It does move a little bit because, you know, of course you've got the cable underneath it, but just get it in place. I'm going to take first this right here so that help to kind of lock it down. There we go. So that's in there pretty nicely. I did do, previously I had set this all up, and so I actually ran the full Windows 11 install using this external adapter. So I know that, you know, it works and works, you know, relatively well. So let's get the top. Slides on there pretty nicely. Of course, we don't have our latch, but this is what it looks like from the back. Okay. And again, if you wanted to, you could kind of, you know, sort of rest it there. I know that doesn't look the greatest. You could have it just kind of sitting on the side, especially if you want to put something on top of it. Let's hook up power and cable, and we'll boot up. Okay, we're booted into Windows. I went in, brought up the Crystal Disk Info, and this is the that's that crucial disk, or you know, M.2 SSD NVMe that I'm using. It's got some of the info on it. Let's try running some tests on it. The little adapter does kind of give you a rough estimate based on the speed of the NVMe and your connection, and you know what kind of stuff you're going to get on it. You know, it's not going to be speed demon, but at least it's a little perhaps better than some of the just, you know, normal SATA. So let's give it a try here. See what we've got. Not, you know, not that great, but about twice as what you'd get on normal SATA. Definitely, obviously, a far cry from normal NVMe, but you are limited. The actual little adapter that holds this says that the most you can get with a PCIe 3.0 NVMe drive running at 1x, which we're doing here, would be 1 gigabit per second. So we're, you know, a little shy of that 879, but pretty close. Possibly with other hardware, you might get some better results, just a little bit more. This is running on a G3 that has a probably the slowest processors you can get. So, you know, that could affect the overall performance. But, you know, at least it's there, it works. And I'm able to boot from it. I'm able to install Windows to it. So it's not a bad setup. For the G4, I'm really not wild about this setup. What I ended up having to do was take the caddy out and also the FlexIO. And in order to be able to get something that I could hook up here and then stretch it out and connect up the drive like that. Not real crazy because you got a giant hole in the back. Of course, you lose the caddy. I mean, technically, you could still use the SATA right here, but I'm not. I just don't like stuff, you know, where it's just hanging. I did look at. There's some screws here. I tried taking these out to see if somehow that allows me to pull this out, but it's in there pretty strong. I was kind of hoping that we could get it through this right here, somehow get the cable, but that doesn't look like it's going to work. Now the G2, it's got some interesting options. So it definitely, you can put the the connect up to the Wi-Fi. The caddy will still go back in, so you can still have your caddy. Ignore that. I'll put that back later. If you are so inclined, you could cut a little notch right here, and then this would go all the way out. Unfortunately, this is just a little small for the end to fit in, but if you were to cut that, it would be a straight shot. You'd have lots of extra cable, and you'd have this nice, PCI slot on the side. Now, the other option is, let's see, if you have this in here, you should be able to still, you'd have to take out the, I don't know, it's really not called FlexIO, but this sort of expander card here, you'd have to take it out in order to be able to have an opening here that you could thread the cable through, and then it would just be out and hanging. So that's got some good options. At least you're keeping the caddy in here, which I think for this one you really kind of need the caddy. So that's some options to do with the G2. Now, as far as the G1, I'm not quite sure if it's going to work. This particular unit has not had the BIOS tweak to it to enable it to boot for NVMe, and I don't know if that also means just to be able to see it, because I could boot for SATA, but I couldn't see the drive that was in here. So, but just for completeness, just to show you, the only way that you're going to be able to make this external is you're going to have to cut through this little gap here to be able to fit it through. I'm not so wild, again, about modifying cases, because if you change your mind later, this might just look really weird having the notch there. But at least, you do have some options, and it is a straight shot. You can still put the caddy, back on. But at this point, unless I can confirm it myself, I really can't recommend it for the G1. If someone wants to try it out there and let me know if they were successful. Overall, this was an interesting sort of experiment to see what could be done to add a PCIe sort of slot to one of the minis. I don't know overall, just overall practical uses for it, but it is nice, especially if you want to get the full size 2280 drive instead of coming off of that Wi-Fi slot. Because my other videos that talk about adding sort of a Wi-Fi hard drive, you're pretty much limited. You've got to go with the 2230 if you want to be able to do that. So that has some stuff. It's up to you in terms of aesthetics. Having this thing sort of poking out the back. Depending on what you have to do as far as giving up, hey, do I have to give up a caddy? Do I have to give up a FlexIO? All these kinds of things you have to think about for the particular. And I know that folks have asked about, hey, can you try it with an external, graphics card, that sort of thing. That the graphics card could be something to do. I've also seen where they do sell, I believe, like a Wi-Fi or A+E key to Oculink,
and perhaps an Oculink to a graphics card would be another thing. But again, you're dealing with a very, you know, you have to go pretty much with a 1X graphics card, and to find something that outputs enough stuff to make it worthwhile versus just using the, you know, the built-in display ports and VGA.